welcome to day 2 of our 3-day leadership training. This is the third year we're doing this leadership training in the summer, our summer leadership training. And we're so excited this year because this year we did something a little bit different. The first year we talked about being a mentor and what it was to be a leader on campus. The second year we talked about career and what it was to hear your story, how to use that and give your 11-second elevator pitch, how to work on your LinkedIn account, etc. And this year we're talking about money and building wealth. One of the things that it's really important right now for all of you is paying for college. We know that yesterday many of you worked on trying to figure out what your cost of attendance was going to be, figuring out what the unmet need is. And today we have experts, and I mean experts, because they're going to tell you a little bit more about themselves, but also they have been able to raise funds to not only pay for college for themselves, but also help other people pay for college. So I'm really excited about that. And tomorrow's going to be our last day, and I hope all of you are able to join us. But tomorrow we're going to talk about building the personal wealth. So we'll get some information on saving and what every undocumented person should know about credit, building credit, and knowing that every single one of us has the right, has the opportunity to do those things, and also just getting ready for it's a long ways ahead, but retirement and just living our lives how we want to live them. So we're going to wait a few more seconds to allow people to join in. I see the numbers keep rising of attendees, so I'm sure people are going through their emails right now. They're trying to find the GoToWebinar registration link. So we're just going to wait a few more seconds. But in the meantime, for those of you that did not participate in yesterday's presentation, we will be sending out in the next 2 weeks the recording. So this is going to be recorded as well. Nubia is going to be helping us by clicking the record button. And so the recordings of this presentation and the other 3 presentations are going to be sent out later at another date, and all the materials that are talked about, the presentations, are also going to be sent out. So if you missed out yesterday, I highly suggest that you take a look at that recording, because there's some really great information there about college and some tips on how to maximize your scholarship. So I know that Daniel has a short time with us, so I want to make sure that we maximize that. And so I think we are almost ready. I think we got a good contingency of people on. And I'm really, really excited. We have new scholars and we have current scholars. And so before we start, I wanted to do a quick poll just for Nubia and Daniel to get a sense of where you're at in your fundraising efforts to pay for college. So if you can, all of you, just take a few seconds to tell us, have you ever fundraised in the past? So it's a really quickly, just yes or no question. Have you ever fundraised in the past? So once we get this poll question, I'm going to introduce our presenters of today. I'm really excited about them. So we have 87% who have voted. There's still some votes coming in, and we're going to close the poll in 10 seconds. So if you have not put in your answer is yes or no, have you ever fundraised in the past? And it doesn't have to be just for paying for college. Maybe in 5th grade you fundraised selling chocolates. Maybe in 8th grade you did a jump rope for heart and you went around asking people for money. All of those count. So have you fundraised in the past? Maybe you did a GoFundMe account. Maybe you helped your mom sell tamales for the church, something like that. So I'm going to be closing the poll. About 90% of you have voted. Okay. And here are the results. So 53% of you have fundraised in the past and 47 of you haven't. Perfect. So with that, I want to introduce to you Nubia. Nubia is the co-founder of the Isaac Amaya Foundation. The Isaac Amaya Foundation, if you don't know, is in Arizona, and they've been doing really amazing, incredible work in the Arizona community, helping dreamers go and receive education and raise money, and they are the experts on fundraising to pay for college. And Nubia is an ASU graduate. She went to school and got her degree in communication, and she does this work on a volunteer basis. So thank you so much, Nubia, and welcome to your presentation.
Thank you. Can you go to slide number 3, please? So first of all, thank you for having me. I'm really appreciate the opportunity to present today, and especially with such a large audience. This is really great. So the things that we will be covering today, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about who we are as a foundation and what we do here in Arizona. Our work in building students' fundraising capacity, which is something that's we found to be really important, actually thanks to our students. Leveraging our community as an asset when you're fundraising, and then my co-presenter, Daniel Rodriguez, is going to be talking about specific fundraising strategies for college. So let me see. Give me 1 second. So Gabby, will you be the one changing the screens in our?
Since you're the presenter, it's on your screen. So yeah, if you click on it on your presentation,
there it is. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So here is my wonderful co-presenter. He is Daniel Rodriguez. He is an attorney at law at Diaz Rodriguez and Associates. And Daniel, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you're a first-generation college graduate and you went to ASU, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And I'm very excited because Daniel has been a really strong supporter of our foundation throughout the years, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that a little later. So in terms of the Isaac Amaya Foundation, we are a 501c3 organization that operates in the state of Arizona. Just to give a little bit of background as to how we started, we actually used to be a radio show that came together every Sunday to give information, entertaining information about things like education, health, politics. So we were college students back then, and we started doing a lot of information work around education, specifically around issues that affected dreamers. So when we went off the air, we didn't want to stop doing the education work that we had started to do and that people started to know us through. So we decided to continue our work in that area, and we decided to transition to becoming a nonprofit organization, and our focus was going to be specifically to help undocumented students. So that became our focus when we started our organization, and we do that work in a variety of ways. One of them is that we provide information to parents and students about how to pay for college, and I really can't state enough how important that is. We see that all the time in our tabling sessions, in the workshops that we give, how little information there is out there for actually all parents, not even just parents of undocumented students, about how they can actually pay for college without having to rely so much on loans. We also raise funds. The majority of our work is raising funds to provide scholarships, predominantly to undocumented students again. And actually, on that note, I'll put in the plug that our scholarship cycle just started. So if you're a student going to school in any of the private or public universities here in Arizona and in the Maricopa Community Colleges district, you can apply for our scholarships. That's available as well, and I'll be giving the website towards the end of the workshop. So we do that. We raise funds to give scholarships. And then we also started to do some work around developing students' capacity to raise their own funds. We saw that there was a lot of need in this area, and so we started doing some of that work through some of the members of our organization. So we started doing this mainly because we had graduate students that would come to us asking for support in their fundraising campaigns. Silvia Rodriguez, for example, was the first student that came to us. She was accepted to Harvard, and she was doing a fundraising campaign because she couldn't pay for it. She was an undocumented student that couldn't pay for it. So we gave Silvia a $5,000 scholarship, and then one of our members, Luis Avila, started helping her out with campaign advice and figuring out what kinds of things she could do to meet her goal and to actually go to Harvard. And she was actually able to raise about $75,000 to pay for grad school. And this is actually how our memorial scholarship was born. So before, we used to have students specifically come to us and let us know about their fundraising campaigns and ask us for help in that way. But then it actually became a structured thing that every year we would give a $5,000 scholarship through an application process to a grad student, to an undocumented student that was going to grad school. So it really has shaped a lot of the work that we do. Now, why fundraising to pay for college? So first of all, grassroots fundraising or crowdfunding is a way to raise money by asking individuals to directly donate to your education. And many students, particularly before DACA, engage in crowdfunding to pay for their graduate degree. So while before we would do consulting of sorts with some graduate students who were fundraising, now we're also proactively making this an option for all students, regardless of their education level. Why? Because this is a sustainable way to pay for college for everyone, and it can prevent students from getting into too much debt. So it's a sustainable way to pay for college. It's also measurable. By fundraising, students can actually measure how much money they have to go to college. And then one of the other reasons is that students have control over how much money they have, as opposed to scholarships. When you're applying for scholarships, you can apply to as many as possible, but you don't really control how many of those you're actually going to get. So when you're fundraising, you can actually establish goals, so the amount that you raise is actually more in your control. So now when we organize our higher education forums, for example, we make sure that one of our workshops is about fundraising to pay for college, and that the students, and the way we do that is that the students that we've previously helped with their campaigns, they're the ones who run these workshops. So they are the experts, like Daniel Rodriguez, for example, and he's been so gracious in helping us out in previous workshops that we have organized. So one of the other things that, one of the other reasons why we did this is because our community, we realized in seeing how successful students are in fundraising to pay for grad school, we saw how they really use their community as an asset. And so many times, you know, we're kind of, our community or in this country, we hear a lot of times that some of the things we have or some of the skills we have and the communities that we belong to are not necessarily that, but we realize that our community is an asset in this work. Why? So our communities are very giving. We've had to help each other out. So that's how we've been able to survive at times. We are, in many of our cultures, especially if we're low-income families, we have to rely on others to help meet our needs. So doing this collectively is something that we're used to, and why not leverage that when we're paying for college and asking our networks to help us do that collectively. And also, one of the things that we see all the time is that our communities are natural fundraisers. From getting, you know, I don't know how many padrinos to help pay for our daughters' quinceañeras, to selling tamales on the weekend to be able to complete, you know, our rent payment, or our communities have been engaging in fundraising practices forever. So this means, one, that they are familiar with the concept, so they won't be surprised when you ask them for money. And two, that if you grow up in a family that did those kinds of things, you have many examples of fundraising you can implement to pay for college. And we'll be talking about some of those when we share out some of the pre-work that we asked you all to do. So with that, I am actually going to hand it over to Daniel, because he is an expert, and he is going to be talking about specific strategies that students can implement. And who better to do this than Daniel, who went through law school thanks to a fundraising campaign, and now he's a successful attorney here in our community, and he's given back many times to our foundation by leveraging his network now, and then also by doing this type of work and talking to you specifically, to different students, about his efforts.
Well, hello everyone, and good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Please let me know if I'm speaking too low, too fast, or if you just can't hear me, because I am in my home in a computer, and sometimes the internet connection here really sucks. I guess I just want to share my story with you first, because I think through my story you will have an idea of what I had to do as a dreamer, as an immigrant student, to fundraise for college and for law school here in Arizona. So again, my name is Daniel Rodriguez, and I was born in Monterrey, Mexico. I came to this country when I was 8 years old with me, my mom, and my two sisters. And we came from Monterrey to Phoenix, Arizona. Growing up, I grew up as normal as any other brown kid in West Phoenix could. And that's what I tell everyone, because it's the truth. When you grow up, even undocumented, you don't really know, you don't have papers and what that means when you're 8 years old or 7 years old. So you just kind of grow up like everyone else, thinking you're a little bit different, but you're not really sure how yet and to what extent. And I remember I grew up that way all the way to the school system, elementary, middle school, high school. In high school, to be honest with you, the first couple of years in high school, I wasn't a straight A student. I wasn't really thinking even about college. Like a lot of students, I wanted to get by unnoticed and just make it through high school. But a lot of things were happening at home with my mom and with my family, and that just kind of reminded me of all the sacrifice that my mom had made for us in coming to this country and seeking better for us. So I said, well, I want to give back. I want to give back first and foremost to my mom. And how do I do that? And I heard from other friends about this thing called college, and that if you go to college, that everything's going to be fine, and you're going to have a lot of money and a white picket fence, and you're going to live the American dream, and it's going to be great. So I'm like, well, I want that for me, and I want that for my family as well. I went to a high school counselor at Trevor Brown High School in Phoenix, and I told her, well, what do I do to go to college? I want to go to college. And that first counselor that I spoke with, she said, Daniel, I don't think that a student like you can go to college. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, why don't you focus on getting a job instead? And I remember that because it was the first time that I was really enthusiastic and really just excited about the idea that I could go to college. And here was this person that was being paid to help me just do that, telling me that, you know, maybe I wasn't college material and I should just get a job instead. So unfortunately, I kind of did that. I didn't think I could go to college, and so I said, well, my counselor's telling me to get a job, so I went to get a job at Hometown Buffet, right next to Trevor Brown High School at the time. I started washing dishes, and for me, it didn't matter whether it was college and eventually law school, or whether I had to be, you know, the best damn dishwasher in Arizona. And my whole goal was just to be helpful to my mom. So however I could do that, I was going to do it. But I still wanted to go have that American dream and go to college. So I never lost full hope. I remember that there was a time I was getting ready to drop out of high school, thinking, well, why even do all of this if I'm not even going to be able to go to college, if there's nothing next for me? If it wasn't for another counselor, her name is Donna Barnes, who came up to me and she said, you know, Daniel, I've heard about you. I know you're a good kid. I know you want to go to college. Let's do it. And I said, well, you know, I spoke to this other counselor and she said that, you know, I couldn't go to college. And she said, you know what? I know about your situation, she said, and don't worry about it. There's this thing called the DREAM Act, and by the time that you go to college, you're going to be a citizen, so don't worry about it. And this was in 2002, by the way. Spoiler alert, no DREAM Act yet, but that's another topic. But that gave me a lot of hope. And I said, okay, well, what do I have to do then? And she said, well, get involved, get good grades, and you know, just get involved in as many clubs as you can in school, get good grades, and we're going to start doing a resume, we're going to start doing a personal narrative, and we're going to apply for scholarships. I didn't know what any of that was. I didn't know what a resume was, I didn't know what scholarships were, but as soon as she told me that all I had to do was go and get involved and people would give me money, I was like, okay, well, let's do it. So that's what I did. My junior and senior year in high school, I became very involved. I took all honors classes, and thankfully, I ended with a GPA high enough to get a full ride scholarship to Arizona State University. My first year of college, I've had more money than my mom had ever had in her bank account. Because aside from getting a full ride scholarship to ASU, I got a book scholarship. I ended up getting about like 15 to 20 other scholarships. I had a lot of money. And so I was set. I was living in the dorm for not for free, but paid. I was at Arizona State University with a full ride scholarship. All I had to do was get good grades. And for the first 2 years, I did just that, and everything was fine. And so then you might ask, well, that doesn't sound like you had to do much, to go to college. And it was very hard. And I was very grateful for those scholarships that I received early on. But something happened in Arizona in 2006 that changed everything for me. In 2006, Arizona voters passed what is called Proposition 300, which is the in-state tuition law for dreamers or undocumented students here in Arizona. And essentially stated that if you're undocumented in Arizona, you no longer qualify for in-state tuition, you no longer qualify for merit-based public scholarships. We've never qualified for financial aid or federal grants. So I get a call from the financial aid department at ASU saying, Mr. Rodriguez, we regret to inform you that starting next semester, you're going to have to pay out-of-state tuition, and you no longer qualify for your full ride scholarship. And I said, okay, what do I do now? It was a huge hit because for 4 years by that time, I was playing the game like people said I should play the game. Get good grades, be a good student, be a good kid, and you're good to go. And I did that, and all of a sudden everything was taken away from me. For the next 2 years at ASU, because I got so much money from the scholarships that I received, I was able to work and finish college with the savings that I had and working. And I also got a couple other book scholarships. And I graduated from Arizona State University in 2008. But that's not where it ends. In fact, that's only really where my education campaign began. I wanted to go to law school, and my dream has always been to be an attorney. In 2008, when I graduated, I received 2 big private scholarships that enabled me to go to 1 year of law school. But in 2009, 2 things happened that took away those scholarships. One scholarship started asking for a social security number, which I didn't have. And the second scholarship was given by a family that had a lot of money in real estate. And as many of you guys can remember, in 2009, the economy wasn't doing so hot in real estate. So that scholarship completely just ended for everyone. So there I was, once again, I worked so hard to get 2 private scholarships, which I did qualify for, and all of a sudden, those were taken away. I decided at that time, because there are so many things going on with immigration here in Arizona. It was 1 year before SB 1070 here in Arizona. We have already been hearing about it, a lot of things going on with the DREAM Act and issues surrounding immigrant youth at the local and national level. So I decided to keep doing and focus more on what I was doing, which was organizing with dreamers, with immigrant youth. And so I started to do a lot of that. Now, I studied political science and English literature in college. So I read a lot of novels about the American experience, and I learned a lot about politics. And one of the first things that we started doing as a Dreamer movement that I believe was the most effective thing that we've done was to share our stories, to share what it meant to grow up undocumented in the US, to share what it meant to feel American in every way and having this be the only country that you know. And that helped a lot later on. Because I remember back in high school, even though I got those scholarships, back in high school, when my counselor told me to write a personal narrative, I didn't know what that was. When my counselor told me, well, just write about you and why you want this money, in my head, I was like, well, I'm Mexican, I'm poor, and I need the money to go to school. Like, what else is there to do? Like, what else is there to write? I didn't really understand the concept of a story of self or my story back in high school. But being part of the immigrant youth movement really changed that, in being able to share a story that really matters. And I say that as the first sort of tip for everyone that wants to get any money from anybody else, whether it's scholarship, whether it's a fundraiser, whether it's whatever, political campaign. You need to have a story that inspires others to give. And it matters because thinking about myself back in high school, and also a lot of the high school students that I've been able to mentor since then, when I ask them, what do you want to do? And they say, well, I want to be an engineer. I want to be a nurse. Well, why? Well, I want to help people. Well, let me tell you this. Knowing from personal experience and also being part of many scholarship committees giving money to other students, I'll give you one piece of insider advice and knowledge. No one cares that you like to help people. No one cares that you like to help people. Why? Because who doesn't like to help people? Who's not going to put in their personal stories or narratives that they don't like helping people? Like, who's ever going to write, hey, I hate people, give me money? That's not going to happen. So we have to learn how to share our stories that are more personal to us. Why do we like to help people in the way that we like to help them? For me, I remember growing up in Arizona, like many of us, no matter where you are nowadays, really, every time that I was driving in the car with my mom, seeing a cop and being scared and kind of not looking that way, or just praying that the cop would pass us, and looking at my mom tense up while she was driving. Remember the friends that I had that were arrested and deported, that didn't get a chance to talk to an attorney, that didn't even know what their rights were. When I asked for money and for scholarships, I said my story in a way that let other people know why I needed to be an attorney. Because a lot of people want to be attorneys, a lot of people want to help. But what created that passion in me that I need to be an attorney? And that's the difference when you write that personal statement, that you need to set yourself apart from others, and you need to be more vulnerable with the people that are trying to give you money, because after all, they're not investing in anything else but you. So if you make that personal connection with them, it matters. So then I say that because that's one thing that I learned with the immigrant youth movement a lot, how to share my story. So from 2009 to 2012, I took a leave of absence to organize with Dreamers. But in 2012, I needed to go back to law school. And the challenge was, I'm still undocumented, and I have to pay $40,000 a year for my remaining 2 years just in tuition for law school. That doesn't include books, that doesn't include the laptop that I had to buy, it doesn't include, of course, living expenses. Just $40,000 a year to finish 2 years, so that's $80,000 just on tuition. How was I going to do it? Well, it just so happened that every time that I was going to law school in 2008 and 2012, President Obama was running for office. And for me, President Obama was a master in sharing stories about himself, about what he wanted to do, and a master at sending all these emails asking people for money after he told the story. And so I said, well, there's these people that every 2 years go around asking for money and say, well, I want to help your community. I want to make a difference. And then they ask you for money, and I said, well, I want to make a difference. I want to help my community. Well, give me money so I can finish my school and give back. And so I did just that. I had enough experience running political campaigns and helping other people get elected that I said, how do I do this with my own education? How do I create an education campaign so that I can fundraise from everyone that I know so I can finish my education and I can continue and to give back? So I started with creating a blog. And the blog is called Ever Since I Was 7, .wordpress.com, and it's actually still up. So if anybody wants to check it out, it's ever since I was 7, the number 7, .wordpress.com. Why ever since I was 7? Because ever since I was 7 years old, I wanted to be an attorney. So right off the bat, when people go to my blog, they are already learning about my story and what it means for me to be an attorney. And I started just writing about why I want to be an attorney, what I have to do, and started setting everything up that a politician or someone running for office would do. I started having coffee meetings with people, meeting them. I had, during the 6 months prior to starting law school again in 2012, I had coffee meetings at least 2 to 3 times per week with different people, sitting them down for an hour saying, this is who I am if they don't already know me, or you know this is who I am because you know me, and this is what I'm trying to do, and this is why I need you to help. Now, 2 questions that you need to answer for people when you ask them for money is, well, 3 questions is this, and it's very important when you're asking people for money to answer these 3 questions for them. Why you? Why them? Why now? Again, a lot of people wanted to go to law school. If you want to go to law school, if you want to be a nurse, why should people give money to you? What makes you different than anybody else? Because there's a lot of poor people. There's a lot of people that want to help others. Why you? And that's where the personal story comes in. Why them? It's not just asking to anybody for money. You can ask anybody for money, but it's also about leveraging the relationships that you have with people. And by that, it's talking to people that know the work that you've done, knowing the kind of person that you are and the dreams that you have. And if you've given back through community service or anything else, letting them know, look, you know that I've done this, and you've been there to support me. You were there when we were trying to pass the DREAM Act. You were there when we, organized Know Your Rights events, and I was there helping out. So I'm asking you because I know that you care about this issue. And why now? Why is it that your education can't wait? Why is it that you can't just work for 2 years like a lot of people do and come back with some money saved up and finish then? Why is it that they have to give you that money right now? Now for me, unfortunately, it was very easy to let people know why now in Arizona, being undocumented and wanting to be an attorney. Because in 2006, they took our education away. Because in 2010, they took our security away with SB 1070. Because we saw this deportation machine being built and people not knowing what was going on, not knowing even basic rights. And then me learning about other attorneys that were just robbing people and not helping them and not even understanding them, both literally because they didn't speak Spanish like a lot of immigrants here in Arizona do, or just not understanding them where they come from in their lives. And I needed to be an attorney now to help that, because it was going to get worse. And I couldn't wait 5 more years, because if I can stop just one deportation going to law school right now, that's going to be worth it. If I can keep one family together right now, that's going to be worth it. So if you want to wait 3 more years for more people to get deported that I could have stopped, you go ahead and wait. But if you want to help me now, then do it now. And that's the urgency that I created for people. This is who I am. This is what I've done. You know me. I know you care about me. I need to go to law school now because I need to be able to give back. So those 3 questions are very important to answer for people. Why you? Why them? Why now? And I did that time and time again at coffee meetings. I had house parties at my house, at other people's houses. I, of course, did the blog, and you can see all the most of the blogs that I wrote on eversinceIwas7.wordpress.com. I did events. I partner with the Amaya Foundation. I partner with my church so that every event that I can get my face, looked at and my story heard, I was there and sharing my story. And then at the end, I asked people for money. I wrote letters. Anybody that ever donated, whether they donated $250 or $5, every 2 weeks, I think, I wrote a letter for them, letting them know how the campaign was going, how much I fundraised, how much I needed to fundraise, and then asking them for something. Whether it's asking them for more money, or asking them to help me organize a party, or asking them to introduce me to someone they know that might want to hear my story. And that's how I grew my network. My network wasn't really big in terms of my education campaign early on. I had a lot of people that supported me, but not enough to fundraise $80,000, to finish law school. So I needed to grow that network, but I had to start with the people that knew me already. If you go to the blog, eversinceIwas7.wordpress.com, you'll see some of the letters that I wrote and some of the things that I did that are more in detail to push this sort of campaign forward. But for 2 years, essentially, that's what I did. Coffee meetings, house parties, kept writing blogs connected to a GoFundMe account so that people can donate online. I wrote letters and I did events. But it wasn't just sort of out of nowhere. It wasn't just, oh, I think I'm going to do an event next weekend and do it. So I did 2 things that I think that it's very important for everyone to do when they're fundraising a lot of money for any reason. The two things that help me out a lot is, one, creating a timeline, and two, becoming a master at Excel, like Microsoft Excel sheets. The timeline helped me understand what goals did I need to meet in the next 2 years. Fortunately, I didn't have to pay $80,000 right off the bat, right? Schools, most colleges or law school, at least the one I went to, you have to pay the tuition for that year, and if you can't pay that tuition for that semester, then they'll let you break it down into like 3 payments. I mean, there's like some sort of payment plan. So I broke down the timeline based on the payment plan that the school gave me. If I needed to fundraise $80,000 in 2 years, that means I needed to fundraise $40,000 a year. By 2 semesters, that means that I needed to fundraise $20,000 per semester. If a semester lasts about 5 months, that means I need to fundraise about $10,000 every 3 months. And that doesn't include time during the summer that I can use or breaks. So really, if I use the summer and the breaks, something that would be more reasonable and realistic would be about $7,000 every 3 months. Once I broke it down like that, it made it a lot more realistic, possible, tangible, obtainable for me. Because when I was kind of laying down for a long time thinking, how do I go back to school, and thinking about $80,000, it was too much. When I started to put everything in the timeline, it became much more doable. The Excel sheet. I still have the Excel sheet that I used, and in that Excel sheet, I put the timeline, the dates where I needed to have major events, how much I needed to fundraise per event, a list of all friends, and I had tabs for friends, a tab for family, a tab for like general networks, and all the names of people that I know in my network. And then next to the name, I put how much money I think that person can give me. My mom can probably give me $100. Okay, that attorney that I met once that talked to me in college and said, hey, yeah, anything I can do to help, let me know. That attorney can probably give me $1,000. Come on, let's just start with 1,000, right? So I started to put money next to the names of everybody that I knew. And if I met those goals, I knew that I could fundraise what I needed to fundraise every 3 months. So that's how I kept track of who I talked to, how much they've given me, how much they could give me. And then underneath their names, I left 2 spaces so that I can get 2 more people that they knew so I can talk to, so that I can grow my network. So it was an ongoing effort. That's really what I used, the timeline, Excel sheets, and all those different types of fundraising events in order to get my story out there, get in front of people, and at the end, ask them for money. So what tips can I give you, aside from having a very good personal story, aside from answering those 3 questions out of anybody that you are ever going to ask money for? Why you, why them, and why now? These are other tips that I would tell you. 1, love to sell yourself. You need to love to sell yourself. And many of us, unless you're narcissistic really, don't like selling ourselves. It's hard for us to go out there and say, hey, this is why I'm awesome. This is why you should give me money instead of somebody else. Because it kind of sucks. It feels bad saying, hey, you shouldn't give that person money, because sometimes that person can be your friend. Sometimes that person can be another good person. But the point is, if there's only one scholarship to go around, you need to let people know why it's you. So you need to learn to love yourself and to sell yourself. You also need to commit to a purpose. People didn't give me money if I told them, I want to be an attorney because I'm awesome and I want to buy a condo in Scottsdale, Arizona and have a rich, amazing life. Like that, I would not have gotten a penny, and that's not my plan either. But they would give me money once you tie your purpose to a bigger purpose. Once you tie why you want to be an attorney to what's going on with immigration in Arizona, how you've given back and how you can give back even more once you become an attorney. So love to sell yourself and commit to a purpose. Second, lose the fear of no. I had hundreds of coffee dates with people, and the first no sucked so much. The first no was just very heartbreaking, especially because it came from someone that I thought was going to be a yes. And at first, I took it very personal, and I was like, wow, they're like not giving me money. Like, I thought she was cool, right? But I let it go, and I said, you know what? People, they're in different situations. Sometimes they may not give you. In fact, that person that told me no the first time told me yes like only a few months later. So every single no that I got, I had to lose the fear of the no. For every 5 people that I asked for money, 2 to 3 said no. At least half of the people said no. And instead of saying, well, I'm not going to be able to do it because everybody's saying no, I focused on saying, well, that means I have to grow my network because I'm going to get a lot more no's, so I better make sure I get a lot more yeses as well. So lose the fear of no. 3, you have to be persistent. Every single week, aside from worrying about homework, aside from being involved in, immigration issues in Arizona, because I didn't stop doing that, I still had to think about where I'm going to get my next fundraising money. I still had to organize the next party. I still had to reach out to people and get coffee dates. So be persistent and be consistent in the plan that you have, because it can be a great plan. It can be a beautiful plan. It's foolproof, but if you don't implement it every single day, it's not going to work out. And then lastly, you have to create a fan group. You have to create a support group, because I never done things alone. I doubt anybody has done things by themselves. You need support. And so I created a fan group of a close group of people, including people from the Amaya Foundation, that would help me, that I would tell, look, this is my plan, and they would be in charge of contacting others and creating parties or organizing events for me and helping me with that. Without that fan group, it's going to be very hard for you to do everything you have to do, because if you had to do it like I did, you're going to have to do 10 other things aside from fundraising. Go to work, go to school, be involved, etc. So you have to create a fan group that is going to take you through this. I think I already talked for a lot, so I just want to end up by saying that because of this campaign, and by the way, the Amaya Foundation was the first foundation that gave me a scholarship during my campaign, and it motivated me to really keep going. And that's another thing. Most of the money that I fundraised, it wasn't all direct donations from people. It was also private scholarships. But in every single application on that private scholarship that I submitted, guess what I put? I put, why should you give me money? Because just this last week, 25 people gave me $5 because they think that I should go to law school. 25 people gave me $5 because they believe in me. Just last week, I held a party where 50 people showed up just to support me. And when you tell anybody that gives you money that you're not alone, that you have the support of your community, they know that their investment is well taken care of, because they know that you have a support group like me that will not let you fail. So I was able to fundraise the money. I graduated in 2014 from the Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law, and I became the first undocumented attorney in the state. Still the only, but hopefully not for long. And I continue to help others. I just kind of finished that journey as well. So I'm sorry if I spoke too long, but I do want to leave some time for questions.
So freaking inspiring, Daniel. Thank you so much. I think that your drive, your motivation, has a lot to do with your success. And I think every single one of the people who are on this webinar hearing you have the same motivation and drive, and just gives me so much hope, because I know many of our scholars right now are doing their undergrad, and they are getting support from TheDream.Us, but I also know many of them have dreams of going to grad school. And so if you did it, we can all certainly do it. So I'm going to start taking some questions from our scholars. Please make sure Daniel only has a few more minutes with us, and we want to make sure that we take this time to ask him in particular questions about what is it that you might want to follow up on. So right now I'm going to start opening up the lines, and the first person is Alex. So go ahead. Tell me what's your name, what college you're attending, and then your question.
Hi guys, it's exciting to speak with you. My name is, I go by Gabby. Hi. My school is Brew College in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is, I don't know why I'm so flustered, but oh, so in the PowerPoint on slide 9, at the very bottom it says use your parents' strategies. I don't know if and what's his name again? If Daniel spoke to this already, but what does that mean? Use your parents' strategies.
So I can speak to that. So, and Daniel, you can probably do that because we, at least, with my case, that when I was growing up, my mom had to do. I remember one time she raffled a car, literally. Like I think she needed a new car or something like that. But she did a big raffle where she was able to raise some money that we needed. I know that sometimes she would raise money on the weekends by selling food. One time, for example, one of my birthday parties, I turned it into a fundraiser. I said, please don't bring gifts, but give me money because we need to go lobby for the DREAM Act in Washington, D.C. What I was talking about earlier in terms of padrinos for quinceañeras, it would be really great if all of us who have asked for padrinos for quinceañeras can go back to our families and ask, can you be a bachelor's degree padrino? And I will have a lot to show for it, So yeah. Kind of what I was talking about in terms of using our community as an asset. Some of us have been really fundraising forever, and people like Celia, for example, who I spoke to about before, and probably you did too, Daniel. She was an artist, so she did art shows that she turned into fundraisers. She did a lot of food sales. So she did some of those things that we already know from our families, joining cundinas, for example, tandas or cundinas, those things that you give money per month, and then at some point you get a big chunk of money. All of those things are also strategies that we've seen our parents do before, and we can leverage them in our fundraising efforts. And that specifically goes more for the students that don't want to go as public. One of the recommendations that we got from Germán Cadenas, who we also were able to help with the scholarship and with some fundraising strategies, is to that might not be for everyone. Some people want to stay more private than going on the internet. Some people don't feel comfortable with sharing their status on the internet. So those are some of the things that you can do on a private end. Just do it with your closer networks. And again, those are things that our families are already experts in doing. So it's a matter of leveraging those things. I don't know if you have something to add, Daniel.
Yeah, well, I guess that if you need money and you want to learn how to get money, then you need to go to people that have never had money and that make things work because they have the best ideas for fundraising. Like my mom sold food, like Nubia had said. My mom helped me organize like parties. I remember, okay, one time this is like the best event that was organized for me because my mom did it. So I was like, Mom, I need to raise money, and she was like, Oh, Miko, I already know what to do. And I'm like, what? And she was like, oh, we're going to get a whole bunch of parents and we're going to do a Little Miss Dreamer contest. And I'm like, Little Miss Dreamer? What is that? And she was like, we're going to get a whole bunch of little kids or little girls to dress up in a pageant. And I'm like, I hate the idea. Like, I hate the idea so much. I'm such a feminist. Like, I don't want little girls to be dressed. And she said, Miko, everybody's talking. Oh, okay, there's a show like that was really popular, I guess, during that time about this little girl that was like a pageant and I don't know, something like that. So apparently she had a lot of friends and other moms that loved that show and that wanted their little girls to be pageants. And I didn't like the idea. And my mom said, Miko, do you want me to help you or no? And I was like, well, yes. And she said, okay, well, then let me do this. And I was like, okay. And she ended up getting 10 families, 10 little girls, do a pageant and talent show. And we raised like $2,500. Like it was a great event that I didn't even agree with. But I let my mom take over it because she knows how to get money. And so that's what I get from that. Use strategies that our parents, if you've had parents, for example, like mine, who have had to hustle their whole lives, use those same strategies, but adapt them to the current situation and grow from them and make them bigger if you need to. But it's really the same thing at its core.
Danielle, there's a scholar from New York, Joshua, and he's saying, I'm from New York. How can I be more assertive with raising funds when there are laws, for example, that like you cannot cook food without a license? And then he also says, he doesn't have much friends. So what would your advice to Joshua be?
Yeah, one, the networks are super important, Josh. And again, I need to grow my networks. I'm not like a shy person. Generally, sometimes. So I had a good network when I started fundraising, but if I just had kept that network, I would not have been able to raise that fund, like the money that I needed. So I met a lot of people all over Arizona based on my networks. Everybody that I knew, I asked, hey, do you know anybody that I can meet with? So one, you just have to grow your networks. You have to grow your networks and make it happen. And again, don't be afraid to ask people, can I meet with you, even though you don't know them? And continue to grow your network that way. Super important. In terms of the laws, I don't know what laws there are where you live for anyone that's on the call, but work with what you have. I'm an attorney, so I can't tell you to, like, you know, break the law, but I will tell you that my mom sold a crap load of food, which I don't think was legal in some of the ways that she sold it, but I mean, she did it. And so, I mean, again, there's always a way to do it, and it depends where you're from. But and in terms of the laws, it really depends where you are from. But in terms of the network, Josh, and everybody else, you have to grow that network. If you sit down and you follow my advice to create that Excel sheet, and you come out with only 10 people, those 10 people are going to know somebody else, and those somebody else are going to know other people. And I know it's weird to be like, oh, okay, I'm going to be surrounded by all these strangers that I don't know, but you know what? You have to do it. So growing your network is super important.
And I think I'd add to that, Daniel, is that one of the things that Germán, for example, shared he did was that he made a list of people in his network, and that was part of the pre-work that we had the students do. And I asked them specifically for 25 people in their network. And I said specifically the most influential, but it doesn't even have to be the most influential. And in that, just like you did, Daniel, put in what they can give you, because it might be that they can give you money, or it might be that they can lend their house for a party, or it might be that they can introduce you to someone that might have more resources, or maybe not even have more monetary resources, but maybe have a bigger network. So when you're making your list of people, make sure that you think, again, outside the box, and think about the different things that these people can give you outside of money. Because sometimes being in front of people and being able to tell your story is much more important than if somebody can give you $5 or $10. And if they have a better, if a network is their asset, then you should leverage that network. In terms of the being assertive thing, there's just different things that you can do to hone in on that skill. I would recommend, I don't know if New York has Toastmasters, but there might be other public speaking organizations that provide that skill in an affordable way. But that's one of the things, because the biggest thing, like Daniel said, and I'm really glad that he started by sharing his story, because it's the most important thing that you will need to do when you're fundraising. It's being able to to articulate your story in a concise and compelling way. So that's going to be the first skill that you're going to have to develop.
So we're going to take now a question from Carla. Carla, you're going to be unmuted. Carla, tell us what school you're going to and then your question.
Hi, I'm going to California State, Long Beach, and my question was, what have you noticed is more likely to have someone decline to support you during an interview?
So I don't know, Danielle, if you want to answer that. So when you were getting the no's, do you see a pattern?
Yeah, and well, two things, and I'm glad that Nubia made this comment because it reminded me of something. One, when I ask people for money, sometimes people don't have money. And when I started with my sort of inner network, that network that I had are people that are already being hit up for money by like 10 other people. Like, have you noticed, like, for those of us who have fundraised, it's always like the same people giving because we always go to the same people. So that's something that I learned. When I ask people for money, they said no if they didn't have it, and I get it. And I learned quickly what Nubia had mentioned, which is people don't like to say no. And I don't think that human beings naturally like or want to say no. Like, how many of us are like so overworked, we're already like stressed out, and then somebody comes up to us and says, hey, can you like help me with this? And you're like, sure, you know, and you do it, like knowing that you probably should say no, you still do it. It's the same thing for other scenarios. People don't like to say no, but you have to give them options. You have to give them other ways that they can say yes. So when I was just asking people for money and they said no, it kind of sucked and it was awkward that it was like, okay, well, thank you, see you later. But when I started to give people options, and at first, of course, I would ask them for money, and they said, you know what, I can't do it. And I was like, you know what, that's fine. I have this party next week. Can you attend? Or, hey, I know that you know so-and-so. Can you connect me with them? They'll be like, of course I can do that. In fact, after they said no, I've noticed that the second thing that I've asked, they were like enthusiastic about to say yes because they felt bad that they couldn't give me money then and there. And so give people options and find a way for them to tell you yes, even if it's a small yes. Because if you give them a small yes, they're more likely to give you another yes in the future that's bigger. In terms of other types of interviews, I really think it depends, and it's a much larger discussion about like interviewing skills and things like that. But one thing again that I've learned in every scenario in terms of talking to people is you have to make a connection. And you're not going to make a connection by talking just about how you like to help people and how you have really good grades, because everybody else is going to say that. You have to talk about what makes you you, what makes you vulnerable, why you're here, what drives you, and why it should be you instead of anybody else. And making that connection with whoever you're being interviewed is super critical.
Thank you. So Jose Pacheco, he submitted a advice or a question, I'm sorry, and he wants advice on how to throw a successful party for fundraising. So what were some of your partying skills that you put in to raise?
Well, I have a lot of partying skills. No, let me tell you some of the party. I did different types of parties. So I did house parties in the sense of like electoral house parties. And again, if you go to my blog, ever since I was 7.wordpress.com, you'll see some of the pictures from some of the house parties and things like that. And so I would ask someone, hey, can you give me money? And if they said no, or even if they said yes, I would be like, look, I need to do this. I need to fundraise. I need to throw an event next month. I need to throw a house party where I can fundraise $300. Do you think that you can help me like organize that, and maybe we can invite a couple of your friends, or just have wine and cheese or whatever, and I can share my story and ask them for money? And I would guide them through the process. And a lot of these people, they didn't know how to throw a house party. So I had to give them like a sheet of this is how you do it. When is it going to be? Where is it going to be? Do you have 10 people in mind? Let's call them. And sometimes I would, call them myself. Most of the time they called them because it was their friends. And so I did those type of house parties. I also did like parties, right? And those had to be a little bit more controlled because even though they were very profitable, a lot of people came for the party and paid at the door, which is fine. But I had to make sure that it stayed controllable because I don't want like cops showing up at my fundraising party. So I did those type of parties as well. I mean, anything that I had time to do during those 2 years, which was very little time I had left, I found a way to incorporate fundraising into it. But what generally two things about throwing house parties that are going to help you fundraise. One, going back to the story and why people and why now. And that works best when you're doing more intimate house parties, like 10, 15 people, and you share your story with wine and cheese and asking for money. Or second, you make it fun. You make it fun so that even if people don't go because they don't know you and they don't know that personal connection, they'll go because they love to, salsa dance or cumbia or whatever it is, and they'll give you $15 at the door because other friends are going. So I think that hopefully that helps with the answer.
Yes, I think it does. Okay, so let's take one more question. And this question is going to come from, let's see, Jennifer Ochoa. I'm going to unmute you now. Jennifer, tell us what school you're at and your question for Vania or Nubia. Can you hear us? Jennifer? Okay, let's go to Julissa Ramos. Julissa, you should be off mute.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
My name is Jalisa, and I'm gonna be going to FIU in the fall.
Uh-huh.
You guys mentioned he mentioned coffee dates, And I'm a very shy person, and I would like to know how he initiated that. Like, how you ask somebody to go on a coffee date or out to have a conversation and talk about you and your needs.
Well, one, I started with the people that I knew like the best, like friends and family, so that if I made a fool of myself, it was gonna be okay. But that was like my initial practice, right? So I took out my uncle, out. We didn't go to a coffee date. We just went out to eat. And I talked to him. Hey, I'm going back to school. What do you think? Oh, by the way, I need money. And then I started to reach out to other people that I knew that were like friends or like acquaintances, and I sat them down. And I did what I did with you guys during this webinar. Sometimes a shorter version, sometimes it was in parts because we were just talking back and forth. But I shared my story, I shared what I've done, I shared what I'm trying to do, and then I made the ask. I need money to do this. This is why you should give money to me. This is why I'm asking you. Because I know that you got help from somebody else. Because I know that you didn't make it alone. Because I know that you've helped me before. Because I know that you care about the issue that I want to help with. And this is why I need it now. And I don't think that there's something that I can give you that's going to be most valuable than just do it. Just do it and practice with your inner circle, and then eventually you're going to get so good at it. Like towards the end, I got so good at it that I went in there and I was like, here's my story, here I am, I need some money, give me some money, take the money and bye. Like it was good. It was like already like a thing. Like I was already set to start and do my thing. So just start with people that you trust, see what works, see what doesn't. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to say no, and just keep doing it. Like there's really nothing else to it than just get out there.
Okay, thank you. Very good advice.
Great, thank you so much. So Daniel, do you have time for more questions, or do you have to?
Oh yeah, no, I have another 20 minutes.
Perfect. Okay, so we're gonna take more questions. There's a question that got written out. So I'm sure that one thing I want to say is I hope that all of you are leveraging the fact that you have a Facebook page. All the scholars have a Facebook page, and you all should be supporting each other. Like that's why we're in a community, right? And I think one of the things that I hear constantly from Daniel is this idea that he went to his village, he went to his community for the initial support, and from there he went out. So right here, Natalia Rodriguez is saying, hello, thank you so much for sharing your story, Daniel. It's inspiring to hear because I've had my fair share of struggles. I like to share my story and write my personal narrative, but I was wondering if there were Dreamer English majors or even Dreamer Communications major that can help write a good, solid story. Is this any way that we can help? So anybody that can help. So I'm wondering did you have any support, Daniel, like that? Or do you know if maybe in the foundation, if this is what they, dreamers were doing, supporting each other, doing each other?
I got my support. I got my support from different, in terms of like the question specifically regarding like help with personal narrative, right? Like how to write that, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So one, I dug out like a really crappy personal narrative from back in high school and college, and by the time I dug that out, I was already an English lit major, so my writing skills had improved drastically. So I rewrote a lot of that. I included more stuff that I was doing, and I did send it to a few people. Luis Avila, who's also a co-founder of the Amaya Foundation, and who has supported at least a few of us here in Arizona in this types of campaign. I sent my story to him, and he gave me a lot of good pointers. I sent my story to one of my professors at ASU, and he gave me a lot of good pointers. So again, I put it out there, but what really helped me in terms of my personal experience, and I understand that not everybody would have this experience, is having been able to share my story already in front of people as a dreamer. And if you haven't had that experience, either because you haven't had the opportunity or maybe you're not a dreamer and but you've had other opportunities on how to share your story, it's super important to just get up and share your story. And so if you haven't done it, just get up. And I know it sounds silly and like basic to just say, oh, well, get on top of in front of a mirror and do it. But it really is helpful to share your story. And one point that I want to stress, and I'm sorry to kind of go on tangent, but Gabi reminded me of it, is what I had mentioned earlier, that it wasn't just the direct contribution that I got from people. It was leveraging this community support that I had in the scholarship applications that I submitted. Because again, if there's one scholarship and there's 10 people applying for that scholarship, if you had $10, who are you going to give those $10 to? Those $10 are an investment, right? So one thing is you have to make that personal connection for people to like you. And that's where your story goes and all of that stuff. But then even if they like you, would you give $10 to someone that you know is going to fail? You're not. As much as you like them, you're not going to throw your money away. So the reason that I incorporated what I was doing in my personal statements to scholarships is so that the scholarship committee knows that I'm not alone. That if they give me those $10, there's going to be people around me to make sure that those $10 are a good investment, that I'm going to finish college or law school, that I'm going to do what I want to do. So even if you don't have a lot of, like a big network, even if you're not used to public speaking, do a few things, but then make those things as big as you can make them, right? Like when you write about them, write how everybody and their abuela came to your house one day to help you, because in those scholarship applications, because that's really what's going to matter in order to give that scholarship committee the sense that they're making a good investment in you.
Yeah, that's great. And one of the ideas that I think I've been getting just from hearing some of the people say, you know, I'm not as outgoing. I'm a little bit shy. How do I get this going? And it's leveraging that community, right? So maybe an idea is to work together with 2 or 3 other scholars on campus and do a fundraiser for the 3 of them, right? And so you share the responsibility, but then you also share the money that comes in. And then once you learn through that process, then you can start doing it on your own, right? So, and I think that there is a lot of amazing ideas and, you know, just some of the pointers that you gave, right? But there's no exact science to this. And I think that that's really important for people to understand and know, that you can come at this at all these different ways. The way that you came at it has a lot of, Daniel, a lot of systems, and it's very consistent, and it's also very organized. And I think that that's one of the reasons why you were very successful at it. But I think it's also because you were nimble and were able to change even your strategy along the way as you were learning. Let's take a question from Aaron. Aaron, I'm going to be taking you off mute. Aaron, what school are you at, and what's your question?
Oh, hello. It wasn't more of a question, it was more of a comment. Yesterday on the seminar, I heard someone saying that they were going to the Houston University in Texas, which is the one that I will be attending. And I just wanted to say, if someone wants me to review an essay or anything like that, which is what I've been doing at community college throughout my 2 years, I will be more than glad to help anyone and tutor them on their writing skills.
That's so great. Thank you so much, Aaron. We'll make a note.
I had a few things, because I've been reading some of the questions and comments on here, so I had a few things to kind of recommend. It seems like there are a few people that are shy or don't have a lot of experience in sharing their story. So one of the things that all the different students that we've worked with, and even Daniel right now recommended, is to build a team of people that will support you to do different things. And one of the recommendations from Germán, for example, is to invite people to that fundraising team that is going to be your core helpers, people that have skills that you don't have. So if you build a team of 2, 3, or 4 people, make sure that one of those has experience in public speaking or has experience in writing a personal story that might be able to help you hone that skill. Another one is that if you guys are already a learning community, Gabby, maybe that's something that TheDream.Us can facilitate as well. And then I heard some I read some questions that Daniel. I think this one would be for you, but somebody was asking about whether the funds that you raised were taxable, and then on a related note, what some of the things that our students did was actually partner up with. I think what you did, Daniel, was partner up with the church that the funds could go to. That way, people would feel more comfortable writing out a check to a church. So if you could talk about that a little bit, that would be great, Daniel.
Yeah, definitely. Well, leading up to raising money, there were short-term strategies and there was like long-term strategies. So, for example, like I was involved in helping fundraise for the Amaya Foundation, right? And that was just general fundraising, like not for me, just to help an organization that was giving scholarships to students like myself. And so I helped fundraise for that. But that helped a lot because then down the road, I applied for one of the scholarships and I was able to get it. So I think that that's helping those types of organizations generally is good because ultimately they're there to help you. Second, yeah, it was, to me, when I thought about asking people for money, one of the things that I thought about is like, whoa, that's kind of shady. Like, how do I tell people, give me $1,000 and write a check to my name? Like, how are they going to know that it's going to go to where I'm telling them, right? And I know a lot of my friends and family would do it anyways because they know me. But what about the people that don't know me? What can I tell them or do for them so that they have confidence that this is not some sort of scheme, that I really am serious about using this money to go to school? And so I partnered with my church, and my church created a fund. Well, they already had a fund, but they allowed me to use it for donations for scholarships. And so then people didn't write out checks to me. They wrote out all the checks and gave the money directly to my church. So that helped with creating some sort of accountability for me, and also some comfort for the people that were giving, $1,000 to feel like it was going to a legitimate group and not just making it up to me.
Great. Okay, let's take a question from Alma. Alma,
Yep, we can hear you.
Hello.
hey, Alma, what school are you going to, and what's your question?
Miami-Dade College.
Great.
My question is, like, how can we get like more of the community involved, like to help us out? What are some ideas, like other than the food and? Hello.
When you say community, what do you mean, like the
people that I
community?
know, yeah, that are around me, like to help raise more money for college?
I don't think I'm understanding the question.
I tried the GoFundMe account, and I didn't really get like positive, like, back from people like trying to help donate. Like, what can I do to better?
Yeah, I think that, well, some of the things that I did, for example, going back to the coffee dates, the house parties, the intimate house parties, those were really helpful because in one side, I was doing the coffee dates, but that was with one person for 1 hour. And if I didn't get anything out of that 1 hour, then it could have been like something I could have gotten from everybody else, right? So it was like a lot of very time consuming. And then on the other hand, it was the larger parties that I did that were just dancing parties where people would donate to get in and things like that, but they didn't know anything about me. And so I had to go around telling them why they were there aside from just partying. And sometimes I didn't get much more than the entrance fee in those parties. But the intimate house parties, the 10 to 15 people house parties, where I had the chance to tell my story, connect with people more intimately and for more time, those for me were the most resourceful. Why? Because of the multiple asks. Because it wasn't just, hey, give me money. Remember when I told you about investments? People don't like to say no, and people don't like to lose their investments. So if somebody already gave you money, the chances that they're going to give you money again or will do something to help you to make sure that whatever reason they gave you that money for happens increases dramatically. So the people that gave me money, yes, most of them gave me money again, but aside from that, they helped me brainstorm what else could be done in my community in order to get more money. So there was at least, for every intimate house party that I threw to 10 to 15 people, there was 1 or 2 people in that house party that helped me organize another house party. And then I would get people to tell me, hey, have you tried to do this? Have you tried to do that? And that helped as well. So I think that brainstorming, don't be afraid to brainstorm with people that are helping you. You don't have to go to them with a concrete, foolproof plan. You just have to go with them with an intention, and this is what I want to do, and how can you help me? Like Gabi said, it's going to evolve. That plan is going to change based on what's going on. So if what you've done hasn't worked out, I would really recommend the more intimate house parties, and I would recommend you ask the people that show up, what else can I do, guys, in order to get to where I want to be?
One question, Daniel, thank you for that, is how do you document, Ariana is asking, how do you document the funds that you were receiving? So I'm guessing that the ones that were going to the church was keeping a log of it, but like how do you keep everything, you know, and to be able to do the thank you letters and be able to go back to people? What do you do to keep a record?
Anybody that donated directly to me, even if it was like a check to the church, but they gave it to me, of course I would put their name, address, and phone number and email in the Excel sheet. Anything that the church gave, that the people gave to the church, I specifically asked people, hey, if you're gonna send a check to the church, can you please put in the memo Daniel, or something like that. And then the church will let me know the donations coming in from those people, gave me the name, gave me the number, and the amount. And so I put all of that in the Excel sheet, and that's how I kept track. For anybody that donated, they got at least a thank you email, but then they were also added to my letter writing campaign because I did write letters. And so that's the Excel sheet. And I'm sorry, guys, I didn't have enough time to put that together. But if I could show you how I did my Excel sheet, it was like too much, kind of extra, really. But I had a tab for everything, and I had a tab for people that donated, people that haven't, people that said they would, and I did follow-ups with them. But everything really well organized in that Excel sheet really helped me out.
That's great, yeah. And we had a scholar asking just about that too, like how do you keep yourself organized? So, okay, that Excel sheet. So we're going to take one more question, and then we can let Nubia and Daniel if there's anything else. We're going to take this question from Briselda. Briselda, tell us the name of the college you're going to and your question.
My name is Briselda Armendariz, and I just graduated from Dodge City Community College in Kansas, and I'm gonna start the university at Kaplan online. I'm planning to get my bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and I just would like to ask Daniel, how can I keep me motivated if I'm just a dreamer for now and not a USA citizen? Like, I want to work for the FBI.
What was your name again?
Briseida Armendariz.
And Briseida, why do you want to do what you want to do?
Well, I'm just gonna answer like you said, because I want to help people. Like, I want to be a detective, and I want to help people resolve cases. You know, they just close cases because they don't have enough proof or evidence, and I just want to help them.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but and I'm sorry to like put you on the spot. So you have to work with me here. Why do you care about that? Why can't you just help puppies get better and be a veterinarian?
Because I really like to work with the law.
Why?
Because I think I'm good at it.
Is that the only thing that you're good at?
Yes.
Why?
Because I always dreamed to be that, to work for the FBI. That was one of my dreams when I was little.
Okay. And I'm not going to keep pushing you right now because I know that there's a lot of people on the call. But if I were with you in person, I would just keep asking why, and why again until you tell me something that somebody else is not going to tell me. Somebody else is going to tell me that they really think that they're good at being a nurse. Somebody else is going to tell me that they've always wanted to be an attorney since they were 7 years old, like me. But I want to know why it matters so much to you to be that. Because if you can't give me that urgency, if you can't tell me why it is that growing up you had this passion to solve cases. Cases where nobody even cared about. It could be a homeless person that died on the corner that nobody cared about. Why is it so important to solve that case and give that homeless, dead guy some legitimacy and solve that case? Tell me why it's important to you. And so challenge yourself to answer that question. And once you have an answer that's honest, that's vulnerable, that's going to be the motivation for you to keep going. And don't think about what's going to happen in 2 years. Don't think about whether that guy's going to stay or not. Don't think about whether the dream is going to pass or not. Think about what you have to do to get through this semester and just take it like that.
All right. Thank you so much.
And I just want to add to that. So, and share something that I haven't shared publicly, and I won't be sharing it publicly because right now my family is still going through an immigration case, and it's a very difficult case, and I don't want for the wrong immigration officer to hear me or whatever. I just want to protect my family. But I've been living in the United States, like most of you, since I was a little girl. I came to the U.S. when I was 8 years old in 1993, and this year, in September, it would have been 24 years of being in the United States without documentation. So, like many of you, in 2012, I applied for DACA and got DACA in 2013. And never in my wildest dreams did I think that, one, I would be doing this work that I get to do every single day as a dreamer, but also I didn't think it was going to be possible for me to get status, right? Last week, I got my green card, and I'm still processing what that means for me, that I have now this status, but I never thought about that. And when I was in school, I never allowed my status to define who I was, and never allowed it to hold me back from the dreams and the things that I wanted to accomplish. To me, yes, it was necessary, but it was just something temporary, right? So now I have this green card, and eventually, I actually know that on March 28, 2020, I can file for citizenship. And, people, it took a long time, but it can happen. And today I feel like I'm very prepared to, one, I got my education even before there was DACA, and I get to use it, and I get to use my degree. But that didn't matter for me to go and push forward to now accomplish my dream. And I think for you, Briseda, I think you have to just push forward and look for ways to accomplish your dream, even if the FBI is not something that you can get into right now, you can do other things, right? So I just want to say, don't be discouraged by our status. That does not define us, and it should not be the all meets all thing, and eventually I do believe that every single one of us will have an opportunity to get some sort of status. And there is a lot of people, including Daniel, Nubia, myself, and probably many of you that are working to try to figure out how to get all of us to get, and our families to get status. So
thank you so much for sharing that, Gabby, because it really, there were a lot of people asking about how you stay motivated. So, I mean, that's one of the really great things about having a network that includes people like you, is that you've gone through this and you know what it's like to not be motivated. So it's really helpful to hear you guys' stories.
And so let's take a question from Hector. Hector?
Yes. Yes, I'm sorry. Can you please repeat that? I had bad connection.
No worries. So just tell us your what college you're going to, and then what your question is.
Okay, yes. My name is Hector, and I will be going to the University of North Texas. And one of my questions would be, how do you start a strong drive, such as fundraising? because I know everybody wants to fundraise, and I understand um, different struggles, different stories around the. How do you stand out? That's one of my questions.
So, Nubia, Daniel, do you want to take this one?
Is Daniel still on?
Sorry, guys. Sorry, I was talking and I was on mute. How do you stand out? Uh, Again, if it, and I'm telling you this not because like I want to promote it, it's already over. But a lot of the things that I did, you can really find in that blog, and I also put on my Facebook. Gabby was talking about using our Facebook, and it was it was really hard to be that vulnerable with people on Facebook. It's hard to tell people that you need help, right? It's hard to tell anybody that you need help for a lot of reasons, whatever you may be going through. But how I kickstarted my campaign is I had the plan. I already knew what was the next step, but I needed to let people know this is it. Like I'm starting this. So how do I do it? So I did a YouTube video. I got on YouTube, and it wasn't like something big. It wasn't like a PowerPoint, nothing. It was just me in front of a camera, just pouring my heart out to people and telling them, this is who I am. I need your help. This is what I want to do. Please share this video. Please go to eversinceIwas7.wordpress.com and donate to my campaign. And a lot of people watched that video, and a lot of people reached out to me, and that's also how I helped grow my network. They were like, well, what can we do? And so if especially if you're a person where maybe you haven't had a lot of opportunities to share your story, putting your story out there somehow is going to be the most important thing to start that campaign. And then after that, you have to keep the momentum going. So yes, even before you put out that video or whatever it is that you're putting out, already have a next step in mind. Now you told people who you are and what you're trying to do. Yeah, you've already asked them for money, but keep them engaged in this campaign. Going back to what I learned from political campaigns and President Obama, it wasn't just an email and give money. It was an email, give me money. Oh, and by the way, next week I'm going to be going to Iowa and we're going to be meeting with blah blah blah. Right? So that's kind of what I try to do. For me, I wasn't inviting people to just give me money. I was inviting people to be part of my education campaign. And when they became invested that way, it helped me, but that meant that I had to keep them engaged. So starting with your story, but already have a plan as to what's next and what do you want people to know next.
Yes, and I think one of the things that I keep on hearing from Daniel, from what you're saying, right, is that you have to start somewhere, right? You're not going to be an incredible fundraising unless you're like a phenomenon person from day one, right? You need to start somewhere. So you can start, like Daniel says, having these coffee dates, saying to somebody, hey, let's go out to get a cup of coffee, and then you ask them for money, right? And this can be your immediate family, your immediate friends. Starting with small, intimate parties, starting with a small, campaign, and using the tools that they have online. But one of the things that you have to make sure that you do is be consistent, and it's not give up, right? And one of the things that I've seen that has worked, and I saw it with, for example, Germán's case and then also Daniel's case, is that they kept their own campaign going. So even if they were not getting and generating a lot of money, they were updating either their blog, if they were doing the GoFundMe, for example. Germán, he would write little things, right? I started my first day of class, and really engaging people to learn about your story, learn about your struggle, but starting little by little and just kind of keep that drumbeat going, right? Not letting either you become discouraged by it, because then other people forget about it, right? So if you keep that drumbeat going, two things are going to happen. One, you're going to keep the consistency, so people are going to want to keep finding out what's happening, right? It's like it becomes a trendy thing. And then two, as I heard from Daniel, you start getting good at it, and there's a point where you're really good at it that, as he was saying, he would go and do all these coffee dates and all these parties, and already had some sort of science to what he was doing. Okay, so is there any, we will stop now taking questions, and I don't know, Daniel, thank you so much for being with us. You are just an amazing person. I have always been one of your fans, just since we met years back doing all the work on Dream Act and also doing the work on DACA. So I just want to say that you have a fan here in Miami, and I really admire your work and everything you've been able to accomplish, and eternally grateful for you taking time from your busy schedule as an attorney to be here with us today. I don't know if there's anything else you want to share or say, but sending it back to you and Nubia.
Yeah, no, thank you, Gabby, and of course, anytime that I can help, I'm going to be there because, like I said, I didn't get here alone. If you go to my blog, eversinceIwas7.wordpress.com, you'll see some other ideas that I couldn't discuss here today in detail. But of course, if you send us an email or to the Amaya Foundation, I'm actually now part of the board, and that's one way that I'm giving back. The Amaya Foundation was the first one to give me a scholarship that motivated me to launch this bigger campaign, and now I'm trying to help others do the same. But I'm sure that if you contact me, Nubia, for anything that either she, the foundation, or I could do, please do so, and we'd be more than glad to help. So thank you, everyone, and good luck in your campaigns.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. And well, yeah, like he said, I mean, we'd be happy to provide any assistance. I can give Gabby our contact information so that you can reach out to us directly if you have any other questions or any other way that we can help. I also have Germán's blog. I will also send that to Gabby, but I'll say it now in case you guys want to find it. It's germansdream.wordpress.com. So that way you have the resource of Daniel, but then also Germán's. germansdream.wordpress.com again, and so that's another one of the students that as a foundation we helped. But Germán, both Germán and Daniel actually, they were really the catalyst for us starting this work, because they actually came up to us, and we really admired the fact that these students were actually coming to us to ask for help. But the one thing that I can't stress enough about if you're gonna embark on doing a fundraising campaign is that you become really good at telling your story. So if again, in building that fundraising team, which has been a recommendation of all the students that we've helped, building a strong team and including someone that can help you hone that skill is probably the most important thing you can do for your campaign.
Great. And so I sent to everyone both the eversinceIwas7.wordpress.com and then also Germán's stream to everyone through the chat. So you should have that. And I think one of the things that it's going to be really important before you start your fundraising campaign is to have a plan. And before creating that plan is just taking some time to review the materials and review some of the blogs that the 2 blogs that we have shared with you. Nubia, I don't know, is there anything else in your presentation? I know that there was a couple of ideas that you had written down.
So what I was going to do, but I think logistically it's going to be a little hard, but we did have some people do some pre-work. So I was going to ask people to share maybe 3 people that they can think of that can be part of their fundraising committee, and maybe not necessarily who those people are, but maybe if they're a teacher or if they're a parent or if they're a friend, just so that others could get an idea of what networks others others are leveraging, and then maybe share 2 or 3 activities that they came up with that their families have done throughout their lives for this to fundraise, because that will also get some juices flowing in terms of what other things people can implement. And then again, 2 or 3 people from your list of influential people, and what they can do to help you, whether it's donate money or contact you with someone else. But it might be logistically hard to do it, so maybe that's something that can happen offline with your learning community.
Yes, definitely. So folks, you know, you have the pre-packet that has some of that information and questions. Take some time to think about that. Take some time to start developing your plan and writing it down. And really, I think some of this is daunting, and I do want to acknowledge that. I do want to acknowledge that some people might not have their life so put together like Daniel, right? Or may not. I wanted to be so many different things when I was little. So I can't say since I was 7 I wanted to do this, right? And that's okay, right? But the most important thing is to write it down, put it down on paper, and like Nubia was saying, start thinking about those influential people. Maybe you cannot come up with a list of 25, but if you can come up with a list of 10 people, which you should be able to, right? Your brother, your sister, your cousins, your immediate family, you start there. And then from there, you start with your friends, your teachers, your professors, people that know you really well. If you go to church, people in your church, in your circle. And then you just start building out those circles as much as you can. And you got to think about this. This is about you, and being able to answer the why questions, right? Why you, why then, why now? I think it's going to be key. But you also got to think about it in another way, right? And this, when I raise funds for TheDream.Us, or when I raise funds for students, it is uncomfortable to ask people for money. But I always think about what is going to be the greater good for everyone. And you got to put that out there, right? So when you get to go to college and you get a degree and you're out there, not only is this going to be beneficial to you, but it's going to be beneficial to the community. So if you're going to be a teacher, if you're going to be a mechanical engineer, if you're going to do whatever out there, right? You having that status, the degree, you having that opportunity to go and use that, the skills that you've learned in college, it's going to be beneficial to everyone. So at the end of the day, people look at that as investments. And if you're able to show people that putting $5, $500, $1,000 to you is a good investment for them. No, yeah, there was something on your presentation that I really liked, and it was some ideas of like different fundraising strategies. I don't know if you can go to that.
Let me see. Were the strategies on here? So maybe they were in my notes in my presentation.
I think they were in your notes. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So, but I did. So those were mainly because I knew that Daniel was gonna talk more about things like GoFundMe or what he did in his campaign. But I wrote in my notes some of the things that Germán shared, for example. Germán and Silvia, who we also helped. So for example, Daniel talked about him doing a video. I think that right now people respond to videos really well. One of the things that they did all share is to consider your safety. Again, if you don't feel comfortable putting things out on the internet, it's better that you don't, especially because it's hard to get them out. Again, when you're building that team, make sure that you include people who have skills that you might not have, and rely on your family and your friends, because your family and your friends, they're going to be the ones that are going to keep you motivated. So that's something that came across from all of them, from Daniel, from Silvia, and Germán, who I reached out to ask for specific strategies, is to really keep those people close to you, because they're going to be the ones to lift you when you're feeling like it's not, like something might not be working. And then one thing they all said to start with your immediate network. I think that it's intimidating for some people to think that you have to have a large network of people that might be able to help you, but the reality is that the people that are gonna help you the most are the ones closest to you. And again, always thinking in terms of broadening that network. And when you go to your mom, ask her, like for example, in my case, one time I was helping my brother raise funds to go to Germany. He's way younger than me, and he was going to go on a school program. My mom is a housekeeper, so she has a lot of ladies that she cleans for, and we wrote a letter for my brother about my brother's trip to every single lady that my mom cleans for. So some of them gave my brother some money, some of them didn't, but again, it was leveraging my mom's network, which sometimes we might not think about. The value of the network of the people that are really close to us. So starting there, because it'll help you with broadening your network if it's not that great, but then also it'll help you with practice. And that's something that Daniel also touched on, in terms of going on these coffee dates. And maybe initially you don't even have to have these coffee dates, because again, this sounds it could be intimidating, but maybe those initial coffee dates are not necessarily to ask for money. Those coffee dates could be to talk to someone that you think might be able to help you, to explain what it is that you're trying to embark on, and see how they can help. And a lot of things people like it when you reach out to them to pick their brain. It makes them feel like they're valuable, and for the most part, they will say yes to having one of those meetings. And then also, when you have things that you might not be so comfortable with, like public speaking, be open about it. It happens to all of us when we have to do these kinds of workshops, and specifically working for an organization that we're volunteers for. We might not all be the best at public speaking, but we're upfront with our audiences about that. Daniel did a really good job in the beginning of saying, tell me if I'm too slow, or tell me if I'm too fast. Sometimes I struggle with that, and I say it to people up front. So being upfront with where you might need help is also very important when you're reaching out to your network. Now, I did put together like a food for thought list in terms of ideas when you don't want to go so public, because again, not all of us want to do a GoFundMe campaign. We don't want to go be public with our status, or whatever the reason might be. But I think I mentioned some of these earlier in the workshop. But parties are always going to be good, because people really like to party and they like to hang out together. So leveraging that, I had asked people to create a list of parties that they go to throughout the year. Why? Because any one of these can turn into a fundraising campaign. If you like an example with the Isaac Amaya Foundation, we used to throw this big awards ceremony. It was a big party that we threw to kind of show people what Latinos were doing in terms of culture in the city. But it wasn't until we turned it into a scholarship fundraiser that people started going in massive numbers. So when you are throwing a party and you tell people that you're charging at the door, but that you're charging because you're going to use that money to pay for college, it gives people an incentive to come to this party as well. Again, Silvia and Daniel, they both did food sales to raise for funds. Now, I know that some people, they're kind of an extreme example, because they were trying to pay for grad school, and it was very, very expensive. But the reason why we started to do this for people who are also doing their undergraduate degree is because it's important for all of us to know that we can do this as well, on top of looking for scholarships. And the amount of money that we might be trying to fundraise is not as great as, for example, $25,000, $40,000 per semester, or $70,000, like in the case of Silvia. But if we want to pay for books, or if we want to pay for 2 classes, or if we want to pay for a semester or 1 year, making those, and I know that Daniel also mentioned it, making those goals more, breaking them down into weeks, months, and year, it really helps to visualize those. But then also thinking about it not just in terms of diving into this huge fundraising campaign, but what are some small things like food sales, like art shows, if that's something that you're into. Finding what your interests are and what you like to be involved with or involved in, and then finding ways to turn those things into fundraisers. The whole tanda idea, I'm fascinated by the fact that growing up, we used to always get into those cundinas and tandas where we would get my mom would get big chunks of money at any given time when she needed it. Now there's online tools that people are putting together to join those types of things. And then I know that our aunts and uncles and families are still doing them. Um, when I give workshops to parents that want to learn about paying for college, I always tell them about the padrino idea, because people are willing to give money for a huge party like a quinceañera or a wedding. It would be great if we could go to them to ask them to be padrinos of our degree. And again, it's a concept that they're familiar with. It's something that you could, because it's your family, you can kind of guilt them into doing. I've been guilted into being a madrina for a quinceañera, so it works to your advantage. And it's something that you can actually show something for. And you can even go as far as saying, you know what, at the end of my graduation, I'm going to throw a party and you're going to be invited and you're going to be a padrino because you helped me get through college. So there's different ways to think outside the box. Definitely leveraging your church. Churches have huge networks. One of the things that one of our supporters in the foundation did was that they dedicated one of their collections on one of their services, and they're donating those funds to us. So can you go to your priest and say, or to a pastor or whatever your faith might be, can you go there and ask them, you know, I'm trying to pay for college, I'm trying to raise this amount of money to pay for this semester. Is there a way that the collection of this Sunday service can be a fundraiser for me? So again, leveraging those immediate networks that might help us pay for college, again, in a sustainable way. We are in a crisis in terms of student debt, and to the best of our ability at the foundation, we want to make sure that parents and students know that there are other ways that they can pay for school without, I mean, undocumented or not, that they can pay for school in a way that they're not going to be indebted, you know, for a really long time after that. And I actually asked Gabby if I could put together a handout for after the workshop with some of the recommendations that the other students gave me, and then also some of the ones that I've mentioned today. That way you guys can have them in writing and can refer to them afterwards. So I can do that as well. Gabby?
Oh, sorry, I was talking on mute. So I was saying that I thank you so much, Novia, and I hope that everyone got great information on how to fundraise and get some strategies on becoming experts fundraisers to go fundraise for school. And you know, one thing I want to make sure everyone here listening understands is that everyone is not born running and knowing everything, right? We do it little by little. So when we're born, we learn to talk. We first say little words. Then if we want to learn to walk, we start crawling. Like, we got to take this approach little by little, and we cannot expect that everyone is going to be able to fundraise $100,000 their first year that they start doing this. So don't get yourself frustrated. Be gentle with yourself and understand that you know, a lot of people may not have money, but they do have other resources that they can provide, and it's people resources, houses, is maybe you know, providing the food, the skills, right? They can cook the food for your party, or they have a couple of bottles of wine that they can give you. So think outside the box. Daniel definitely, and the people at the Isaac Amaya Foundation are thinking outside the box. Silvia, Herman, and others. One thing I wanted to share is my own personal way that I was able to raise some funds from college. One of the things that I did is I got a whole bunch of friends to help me do a car wash, and we did a car wash one day, and we're able to raise a couple of hundred. I think we almost got to $1,000 in one day. So we went to a local Taco Bell, asked if we can set up shop there and do a fundraiser, and they said yes. And so we were able to raise some funds. The other thing too is if you go to church, talking to the priest or the pastor and asking them to do a collection So a lot of the times during the beginning of the fall of the school year, they'll do either prayer for the new students or the people going back to school. You can ask your priest or the pastor, whoever, if they're willing to do a collection for you so that you can go to school. And I've seen that happen, and I've seen it working. So the sky's the limit. The other thing is don't dismiss the small scholarships. They are $500, $2,000, $5,000, like the Isaac Amaya Foundation scholarships. Apply to those, and apply to those that say residents or citizens, or don't or have ambiguity, because you never know if they give you the money or not. So don't dismiss yourself. Let them say no. So last thing is, tomorrow we have our last presentation. We hope that every single one of you is able to be there. That one we are going to focus more on the personal, on the banking, and more of the consumer piece, on the 401ks and credit cards, and the things that we all should know and be very aware of, but might not necessarily, because we're still not adulting. But we want to make sure that you all can make it out to that. We have a really awesome presentation tomorrow for that. And then the last thing is just to remind everyone that August 2nd and August 3rd, August 2nd is the orientation, a mandatory orientation for all new scholars, and August 3rd is the orientation for the current scholars. So we hope to see you all there. We're going to be going to Arizona for these orientations, so we'll be there in person. Everyone else will come in online like this through the GoToWebinar. And without further ado, thank you so much, Nubia and Daniel, for everything and all your work, and every single scholar that was brave enough to ask a question live to our speakers. Is there anything else you want to say, Nubia?
No, just thank you to everyone for the time and the attention and for the opportunity to be in front of your network.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.